Hi everybody, how y'all doing? We are doing the ultimate in live shows. All right, maybe not. So how y'all doing? Today what I wanted to talk to y'all about, I guess I don't really need the headphones, is Linux, my favorite thing. We already have a whole one viewer. Hello one viewer, nice to see you. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about Linux today. That's they leave right after I say that. Well, thank you very much for the lack of support. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Um, but anyway, regardless of that, we've got the show going here, and in theory, let's just make sure if I. Okay, the sound sounds good. Let me look at my multi-view. Okay, my levels might be a tad bit low, so we're just bring them up on the system here. Testing. There we go. All right, now we're a little more loud and hopefully still clear. But I wanted to just talk a little bit about Linux and just kind of hang out. I did have to cancel this week's Open Source Night episode due to the weather that we're forecast to have. And so, because of that, I felt that it would be nice to at least do something, and I wanted to do something, just to kind of flex the being on the air live muscles because I like doing live shows. That's that's something I like to do. Okay, so regardless of that, we've got a bunch of different things here that I would like to go ahead today and just hang out with you guys on and just do some interesting little things. Some interesting little things when it comes to Linux. So, without further ado, I guess we can go ahead and get right on into it. So, yeah, so I'm just going to kind of start by talking about a few things I'm thinking about doing some videos on and kind of just to warm things up, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Um so that's my present plans. So if we take a look here at my screen, you can see this is the system. Now, we're talking about the Raspberry Pi and being able to use it to set up Wi-Fi. So if we actually come in here and look, we can actually set up basically a small router here kind of device. Um, so we can have a routed Pi signal here. So you can see we can create a new network under the Raspberry Pi, and then we can have a regular connection that is out here in the diagram. Okay. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Um, I've actually played around with doing that using Raspberry Pis as access points. They're interesting. I mean, I wouldn't say they're the best access points, but they definitely work in a pinch if your access point dies and you just need to get stuff that connects to Wi-Fi back in service, as I've had to do a few times. But then the other thing I seen was this specific project, which I thought was really interesting because, this project is kind of really giving you like a more graphical user interface kind of a thing, and I thought that was kind of interesting that that we could actually do that for Raspberry Pi. It seems like it looks pretty cool and would work pretty good. So hard to complain with that. So it's kind of my 2 cents on that. I mean, we can look over here, and it looks like it's pretty easy to install. So I think that would be kind of fun to actually try it out. And you could see some of the supported distributions here. In fact, it even apparently works on x86 as well as ARM systems. So that's pretty cool that we have something that can actually do that. And if we look down here, it talks about that it's under the GNU Public License v3, which I think that's pretty interesting that we can do that. So I mean, I would put the question out to the lack of viewers. There's nobody watching right now. My live streams usually start this way, but regardless, if somebody does start watching the live stream, I would point it out to you guys and girls and so forth. But right, what is your thoughts on the Raspberry Pi and using it as a router? Have you done it? Do you like the idea? If you want to use it just as an access point, which in my building up here, I'm actually using a Raspberry Pi 4, and I'm using it not just as an access point, but as a server for other things. But it also serves a simple Wi-Fi network, because up here, I don't really need a lot of speed on Wi-Fi because almost everything is wired in. But I do have my MacBook Air that's up here, and then occasionally a friend might come by, like Billy, and they may want to use their tablet on Wi-Fi. Again, just something that can get them on the internet or can get them on the local network with decent enough connectivity. I find that with the uh, the Raspberry Pi configuration, when I've tested it recently, that on a 100 meg connection down by 20 up, which is what I have, I'm getting 20 megs up, no problem on it, on the Wi-Fi through it. But on the download, I'm only getting about 38, 40 megs down, which honestly, I think getting 38, 40 megs down to most clients is probably good enough anyway. Obviously, there's going to be edge cases where that's not the case, but I think you're probably fine on that. So, that might be something to look at. So, I mean, again, we've got these two different ways of doing it here. And we got full documentation. This is actually pretty nice. I haven't seen this. So this is actually really nice documentation. Interesting. So you can even do a capture portal with this. Interesting. Huh. Interesting. This is pretty cool because I didn't know that such a thing existed, but it does. Well, that's pretty cool actually. Huh. So you could actually set up effectively a captive portal. I mean, that's kind of a old style looking GUI, I would say, but I mean, it would possibly work. You can optionally customize the screen by modifying the files located in. Okay, so at least you could customize it to taste, and I think that would be really interesting to do that. So there you go. We can look at the firewall. So I mean, yeah, this is like, again, giving you a lot of interesting stuff. I like this. You can allow SSH access to the box and things like that. Now I don't know if is that on the internal network or the external internet connection, because it looks like this can do routing as far as like from the internet. Which, in case you didn't know, Linux kernel itself can do routing. So I'm sure probably what they're doing is they're just taking advantage of the fact that the Raspberry Pi is running Linux, and this is based on Linux, and they can just use the built-in routing at the kernel level, and that's pretty interesting actually. I got to tell you, like, I think it's actually pretty cool that you can even do that, right? So I think that's actually pretty cool indeed, that it's like possible to do that. So, that's something just to, I guess, keep in mind, is you do have, some interesting options here. And if you'll bear with me for a second, I am looking at different things that I can talk about here real quick and getting things set up. This is, again, kind of a little more impromptu, so I apologize in advance for not really having necessarily the most up to date, yeah, I guess you could say, things. One thing I guess we could talk about. If we look at my computer, this is an open source program that will let you do some pretty interesting graphic things if you're doing, say, live streaming. And I tried to open it, but it looks like you do have to have it in a terminal. So let's try. So yeah, here we go. Let's see. Process failed. Port already in use. Okay, so I guess it actually did start, but it didn't. It didn't start correctly. So let's give it a try. Local host. Hold on. Hold on. Local host. Hold on. 5656, and there it is. So this is our user interface. And if we actually go into here in projects and I do hello world and I open up my first rundown here, so it gives you some simple stuff on what you can do. But think of this like live graphics. So I've actually been kind of playing with this a little bit. So like, for example, here it is. See, we can do some graphics. Now this can be overlaid with something like OBS Studio, things like that, okay? So that is a possibility. And so we could actually like bring in, like, say, here's my name, East Kentucky person. And then we can actually make them all go out in sync with each other, which I just find is so cool just to be able to do that. I don't know why, but I just find that interesting. You can do like, little tickers at the bottom of the screen, and it can animate in. It was broken when we got here. Oh, okay. Yeah, but anyway, so I mean, you can do some pretty interesting stuff with this, and you can edit these too. So if I double click, instead of saying Vincent Maggard, I could say, let's say Bobby Maggard. Why not? Bobby comes to mind as a name, so we'll just do that. So save the name, and now if I show it, Bobby Maggard, East Kentucky person, right? Pretty cool. And here's something else we can do really cool is I can actually change this in real time. So I can type Vincent here again and hit update, and then it will come back correctly with the updated version, and it's that easy. So we can then again clear it. Again, you can clear if you just wanted to clear one thing, you can do this one button right here, and that will clear it as well. And I mean, again, I kind of find it interesting. This starts to feel a lot more like a real, like news kind of live broadcast thing, like you might see on CNN or something now, when you've got several of these things up at once, which again you can all do. And then, again, oh, we're going to a commercial break. Look at that. Everybody animates out perfectly. And I just find that very interesting that you can do that. And, if we look here at like the different things, and this can be customized, but if you look here, we've got a bunch of different things that we can do. I mean, you can do an Excel like ticker where it pulls from the Excel thing. You can pull from Google Sheets. You can do like a logo in the corner. So that's in the television business. That is what's called a bug. And let's see here. Did it add? I don't think it actually added. Hold on. Okay. Add. Well, yeah, I don't think it's cooperating. It's like it's not cooperating or something. So I don't know. Maybe I can just go ahead and restart it here. All right. And yeah. So, and as you can see, as soon as I stop that, there was an error reading config.json. You can remove. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that because I think where I stopped it in progress, it didn't save the changes. All right. So we're going to have a, well, okay. Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, we got a no space left on device here. I tell you, I am always running out of space on this box. It's not even funny. Give me a minute while I delete a few pieces of crap, old video clips I don't have to have, things like that. And then we can continue. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of all of these. There we go. Okay. So if we actually go back to my computer, there it is. And I run, well, okay. There. Now it worked. Okay. So if we refresh the page, I'm going to do a resend. And so we can actually set up login here for security, but I'm just on a local network, so I'm not going to do it. All right. So again, this will guide you through it like I talked about a minute ago. Now we got an empty rundown. So let's go ahead and let's just add, like, let's try the bug, for example. So now we've got a bug. Oh, okay. Apparently that isn't there. So let's try this. So again, we can do one of these. I'll go ahead and get rid of that so it stops popping up an error on us. But as you can see, we can go ahead and come in here and we can remove different things in the rundown and add them, just like I was talking about. And there, for some reason, the bug is, it looks like the file's just not present. But again, you can do some pretty interesting things. So like we could do a ticker here. And I'm going to do a start of this. And there you go. And so you can see we have a ticker. Now this one isn't scrolling, interestingly enough. If we add way more to it, does it start scrolling? Let's find out. I'm just going to, what's it do now? Okay, it still does not scroll. So, in my mind, a ticker would scroll. Oh, hold on. So I think what we need is to change the timing mechanism here. Update, and now does it, yeah, it still doesn't, well, I don't know what to, okay. So, I mean, again, this can get really complicated. It very much can get very complicated indeed. just went ahead and turned my heat on here real quick. And yeah, that's what I did. I turned the heat on, everybody. That's what I did. Anyway, but let's see what else we can do with this because and my dogs want to join the show apparently. Everybody, you can say hi to my dogs in the chat if somebody was there. Right now, still nobody's watching. This may have been a bad show time, by the way, because I do know that, just so everybody knows that isn't from the States or isn't from, even if it's not from the States, I suspect that somebody somewhere knows what I'm talking about with this. But we have had some really bad weather. Okay, hold on. And if I actually go to the National Weather Service's website here real quick, right? All right. I'm not going to show you my forecast because that would give away my location. But if we actually look here at this map, you can see that we have got a lot of stuff going on in the United States right now. And if I actually go to my local forecast office, again, not giving too much away here, you can see that most of Eastern Kentucky is under here in this wind chill warning product. And so that's something that's a huge thing. And then we got a winter storm warning over here already. I don't know if we're going to get a winter storm warning here. We've got, I think, a winter weather advisory for a lot of the counties near me. Yeah, we do. So this is it right here. But anyway, regardless of that, needless to say, it is, a bad time. And one of the reasons I ended up having to cancel the show and this week was because knowing my power, it's going to go out probably tomorrow or tonight because we're going to get some snow and we're going to be getting looks to be like rain turning to snow. And when that happens, usually it sticks to the power lines real good and the power lines break and then we have no power for several days. So I figured I would do it today so you'd actually have a show for this week of some kind. This isn't a podcast episode to be clear, but it is something. All right, that's what it is. So if we come back to our terminal up here, you can see that it logs everything here. And one of the things I find really interesting, I think, did I already close it? Yeah, I did already close it. But one of the things I find interesting is with this web page, if we was to say go back to it, like I can just click on that link right there, by the way, and it will open normally as well. Well, I'm making a liar out of me. There it goes. But so let's say maybe I have to be in a rundown. I'm not sure. But I know that if I'm in a rundown and I close it, it just instantly errors. Yeah, say disconnected, right? So that's really cool. But I wonder if that we just went back and we just did this. Yeah, it still tells you that it's disconnected. So that's pretty cool. Like it gives you, again, some good status updates. And that's always nice to do that. Yeah, so I think that's kind of interesting that that we can make that happen. I just find that kind of interesting. Just find that kind of interesting. So, yeah, that's something that I just think is kind of, I don't know, it's just something else. That's what it is. Um, but anyway, so regardless of that, yeah, what else are we going to talk about tonight? I think it'd be interesting to talk about Inkscape a little bit. I do find Inkscape's pretty cool. So if we actually go and I open it up, here it is. This is Inkscape, and you can do some interesting things with it. So, like for example, this is how I do my lower thirds on the show, on the live show. So the switcher will take a photo, a PNG with a transparency layer. So all of this is transparent. It's just this tiny little piece that's not. And I can then come in here and I can change this. So I could come in here and I could say, let's say instead of Vincent Maggard, because we're just talking about Bob or Bobby today. There, Bobby Maggard, right? And there we go. And then I've got that. Now, obviously, I don't want to do that, so we're going to just go back to me. But again, you can do that. And I mean, you can get, you can get pretty sophisticated. So, like, this was another screen that I did in it, but this is the PNG version. For some reason, I don't know. Maybe I deleted the SVG version, which is um, that's the graphics type that Inkscape uses internally, and puts some custom things in that open file standard. But interestingly, but I put in here, now again, you can see this is just a still image, but if this was like the other one, we could edit the text and such. And again, I've got like the same kind of shade of yellow here to kind of match with the opening graphic. Here's my super source graphic. This is when you see, like, say me and Joe both on the screen at the same time. This is the background you see behind us, and you can see I actually made it out of the bounds of this little box. This little box is the screen. So anything I do in Inkscape outside of this little box right through here will not show up on your screen. So that is something to keep in mind as well. And I mean, you can get like really complicated. So I always like to come in here and use a template, and then because everything I'm doing with Inkscape is like video based, so I'll just do 1080p, broadcast HD, and then because that's what I like to work in, and then I'll just close all of these real quick. Hold on. Okay, and so if we look at this, let's say I wanted to put a few shapes on it, so I could do like we could do one of these, and then let's say that I wanted to do another one of these. Okay, and make it kind of like an outline kind of thing. And there we go. So this could be interesting. Maybe this is like some kind of an animal's eye, for example. I'm not really the best at Inkscape, but I can do, a little bit. But let's say I've got, the beginnings of an animal's eye here. Let's go ahead and break a third circle in there, and we'll make this like right there, like a little bit of an eye kind of thing. And I'm going to just kind of, so that to me kind of looks like an animal's eye. And then we can actually group these together. So I could say group, and now they act as one. Oh, what the? Okay. That was a weird bug. And then I can go ahead and make another, right? And then maybe I want to go ahead and make the animal's face. So let's go ahead and, I don't know, let's just say that it's this color, maybe not that color. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something. Would we have an animal that color? You know what? Let's go green. Why not? And now you might notice that the other objects aren't behind it anymore. I can do, well, it's not, what is it? Object here. That's the one. Yeah, and I can do lower to the bottom, and there's our eyes back. See? And so I could come in here now. You can see how this kind of very quickly becomes like some kind of a creature. Like it's almost starting to look, even to me right now, like it's some kind of a creature. Okay? I find that interesting that we can do that. So, like, I'll go ahead and save it. And if we look back here, let's say I wanted these two eyes to be grouped together. I select both of them, and then I can group them within the groups, and now the eyes work together. But what I'm thinking would be really cool is to actually have like we did with the other one, like this border, where it's like a slightly different shade of green. So let's do that. And I'm thinking, I'm kind of doing this by eye. Oh, no, okay, I don't think that would work. Yeah, see, this might work, where it kind of feels like it's its own shadow kind of a thing. So we could come in here, and I could go, right, and I could kind of bring this in, and we could just kind of, do that. And then what I can do is I could go into here, and I could, let's say the eyes. That's really what needs to be above it. So let's say that I bring object here, and I'm going to say raise these to the top, right? We want the eyes visible. And then maybe we bring these a little smaller down, and then we put them more towards the center. And so, you can very quickly do some very simple graphic design. I mean, again, this is starting to look like maybe some kind of a creature you might see in a cartoon, for example. At least the face of said creature, right? I could kind of see that scenario with it. So, I really like to play with Inkscape, but I have to admit I am not an illustrator or anything. But it's still kind of fun. So like for example, I could come in here now, and I could make it a mouth, right? So I'll zoom in here. And because this is a vector-based program, for those that don't know, what that really means is that we aren't going to have a lot of issues like with like with certain things, you can have issues where here, let's bring that back a little bit. And I think let's change this. I see a lot of times this is changed to like a red color. Yeah, like so maybe something like this would start to look like an actual creature, okay? I could see that being pretty cool that we can have like this little creature that we can build. I mean, I've done like this simple illustration in just a few minutes, so you can kind of see the power of Inkscape. Even for somebody like me that's not exactly an illustrator by trade or anything, I'm no question about it. I am not an animator. I'm not an illustrator. I'm out of my wheelhouse here, but I can still do something that you might want to look at, right? Like this isn't, it, at least in my view, it isn't that bad looking. Okay, to each is their own on that, but I think that this is pretty reasonable looking indeed, and so you might consider that. You might consider that. So I find that kind of interesting. But I mean, again, we could group. Let's say we could group these two things together. So I'm going to group these together, and now, oh, it didn't group like I thought it did. Hold on. So I'm going to group these together, and you can see now that this is its own component. And then I might also group these parts together. So you can see how you could, again, group. Oh, hold on. I meant to group. Actually, you know what? Ungroup. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to group these two together. Hope you all find this interesting. I'm kind of interested in making this like a full character. So I'm going to ungroup these. And now what I want to do is I actually want to group these first so I can group them like in order with a hierarchy basically. And now I'm going to group both of these. So now they're grouped together and I can move them to taste, right? And so I think that's pretty interesting. And I mean, again, this isn't something that this isn't necessarily like, you can get more sophisticated with it, but it's just pretty interesting that you can do this. And I mean, it's an open source tool. You can think of it like, if you're familiar with the Adobe Suite, like an open source Illustrator type application. And I just think it's kind of interesting that we have something that's really this good. I really like it. And I built a few different logos and simple things, and again, not amazing fancy graphics, but simple things for the show and things like that. So it's definitely possible, right? So I find that kind of interesting. And this version of Inkscape, if I look, is, yeah, this is not even the latest version. So the latest version is like 1 dot something, but this is the older version. And again, we can now export things. So I could come in here, for example, and I can export a PNG or some other kind of output. So you can also do like a save as, right? And then I could actually come in here and I could put in like a SVG. I could put in output JavaFX, which is like a GUI thing for them. I could output a Senfig, which is an animation tool file. You can put out actually a pretty good chunk of things, which I find interesting that you can actually do this much with it. So that's something to keep in mind. I mean, you've got some options, okay? So I just find that kind of interesting that we do have that level of options. I mean, like I said, you can do some more fancy stuff with it than what I'm doing, but I'm just kind of giving you the bare bones basics, and then you would go in if you needed to and customize to the heart's content. So that's again something that you could do if you, for say, example, needed to do that. And I just find that kind of interesting that that's again possible, right? I just find that kind of interesting that that's possible. Um, so I do find that kind of interesting. Thought about doing some virtual machines on the air tonight, but I can't get them to work. Um, you know what I can do? I can show another little utility that I have been using. I gotta remember what it's called. Let's see. What is it like? Hold on. It's like. Okay, hold on. What it is, it's an open source CLI password manager. You all might find that interesting. And it's based on, if you know what KeyPass is, it's based on that, but it's like a CLI app. Let me see if I can find it. Is it KeyPass CLI? I'm trying to remember because there's like be KeyPass CLI. I thought the name was shorter than that. Hold on, let me find out. Well, hold on. Okay. So yeah, actually it might have been this. Okay, so but you can come in here and you could, for example, let's say we wanted to add. Oh, oh, okay. We have to give it the path to our database. So let me do that. Arguments. So the database is going to be in my home directory. Okay. Well, if I can type, I need to get better lighting on my keyboard in here so I can actually see. But let's see here. So the database itself that I'm using is this one. And then I need to get my key as well because there is, path of the entry to add. I don't get it. I'm not sure. So I was thinking, I haven't tried this part yet. I've just used it to like open stuff. But I was thinking like, oh, you could use this and then you would be able to come in here and probably should make this bigger too, actually. Let me do that. Oh, well. What is... Oh, man. Okay, maybe I won't. Sorry. Let me try with this instead of the keyboard shortcut. So, yeah, this is... Well. Okay. There. So that will be easier for you to see on like a low resolution device. But we can do like dash K for the key because I have a key that is used to protect the data. And I call the thing dot key. So if I do that, yeah, it gives me add a new entry to the database. So do I just call it something like, maybe we just call it test? Yeah. So let's see. Invalid credentials were provided. If this occurs, your database may be corrupt. But that's the right key. There is no password. So enter password to unlock. Do I need to... I'm very confused. Okay, I don't know what its problem is. Anyway, but you can do some interesting... You could do some interesting things with this. I wonder if we did, instead of all of this, what if we just did a dash G for generate? What does it do? Okay, so we can create a new database. Yeah, I want to do generate. So maybe I have to do like the spelled out version, even though it gives me a command line. Yeah, so that actually works. So then I've got a password generator there. That is actually pretty cool because now I can easily like go ahead and run everything that I need. That's actually pretty cool. Um, interesting. Interesting. That's actually pretty cool. Anyway, but regardless of that, I mean, you can kind of see the potential with something like this if you, for say, wanted to try out using this thing. I mean, again, you've got some options here on how you could actually, for example, use said thing, which I find is pretty interesting. So if we look at the version here of it real quick, see what version I'm using. 2.4.3 is what I'm using. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty interesting that like we can actually come in here and we can do that. So like here is some basic commands that we can use. So that's interesting. So like the generate, and then we can specify like what we want. So that's actually pretty cool. So I mean, this is something that I actually think makes a lot of sense. So you can have some interesting things here, right? And again, I mean, it's something you might find useful in at least some scenario at some point in the future. And actually, I kind of want to look around this website here. So like this Linux command library is pretty interesting. So if we went and looked basics here, package manager. Yeah. So if we went and looked at, say, apt. Yeah. So that's pretty nice. It's like online manual pages is basically what it is. We got tips, how to clear and reset. Huh, I didn't know there was a reset command for that. That's actually pretty cool. I would just close the terminal and start over. Interesting. And then we got different things here that we can do. Some of these are more of like the A play and the play commands, stuff like that. FFmpeg, obviously, we've got some uses for things like that. But yeah, I think it's actually pretty interesting. I mean, like that we can really do that. I mean, I don't know, just I find it kind of interesting. But I think I'm gonna wrap up the stream. Nobody's really watching this one, and I suspect that's because everybody's probably either without power or internet or both because of the storm that has already hit them at a lot of the U.S. This big winter storm we're getting, or you're about to have the winter storm hit your area and you're preparing for it. I'm already mostly prepared, thankfully, but it's supposed to hit Eastern Kentucky around 10 p.m. tonight where I am. So anyway, folks, probably will not talk to you all for a while because we're going to have to wait for this storm and try and deal with all the repercussions of dealing with that. But I hope you all enjoyed today's live show. Really appreciate it. Me and Joe will be back. We discussed it a little bit today in the spring, or not the spring, sorry, but the beginning of next year, excuse me. A little bit after the New Year's, we should be coming back sometime after that. So we'll make an announcement when the first episode will be recording in 2023, and we'll probably go ahead and still do the Linux Stories episode idea as our first one when we come back in the spring. Anyway, I hope everybody has a happy holiday season and a happy New Year. Oh, I almost forgot. I will be doing a New Year's live show on the last day of the year here on the 31st. Coming up with my friend Billy, assuming that the weather, we're dug out from that and everything's good to go on that by then. But we have plans to do that, me and Billy, and so we'll be doing our New Year's live show. I like to do a New Year's live show every year, and Billy wanted to join me on this year's show, so he's going to be there with us celebrating. So if you want to check it out, it's on the Vincent Maggard channel. You can always do that. Just look up the Vincent Maggard channel. It's already listed as a live stream, and you can pull it up there at the right time. I think it starts at 8 or 9 o'clock Eastern time, something like that. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching, and goodbye.